Hello to all our dear students. Welcome to the Bajirao IS Academy. Today is 22nd December and we are going to discuss the daily Hindu newspaper analysis. So in today's session, we have to discuss two important articles. The first article is related to recent rise in the COVID case and how we can deal with that. Here we will understand some of the basics of biology, like what do you mean by genome sequencing, what do you mean by genome, and how genome sequencing can help to deal with the COVID cases which is rising in India. Okay, then further we will shift to the second article which is related to issues related to Money Laundering Act. You are seeing that the cases filed by Enforcement Directorate are rising in those states which are not ruled by the government of the center. So this raises conflict between the state government and the center. So how we can deal with that? We will going to understand it. So let's start with our discussion. But before that, if you are new to our channel, please do like, share, subscribe, and also share with your friend circle. So now we are starting our discussion, and the first article you can relate with GS paper 3. Here we will understand from the basics about biology. So when we talk about the recent rise in the COVID-19 case, so you know that in 2020 there was huge devastation on humanity and there was millions of death, and again the fear is rising that maybe this type of incident gets repeated. However, when we talk about the solution, so definitely we have to strengthen our infrastructure, health infrastructure, as well as the availability of the doctors. But apart from that, what we need to have done, like genome sequencing of the new Omicron variant, that is JN.1. So what do you mean by genome sequencing? We all are going to understand with an example. Suppose you have an enemy, okay, you have a competitor. So how you can compete with your competitor? Tell me. So first of all, you will try to find out his or her weakness, then attacking on the weakness. So this will lead to the degradation of that competitive person in front of you. So similarly, in the case of the virus or bacteria, mostly these virus and bacteria are not visible to the human eye, and also their behavior doesn't get observed in a simple manner. So that's why we need to have a identification procedure so that we can identify their behavior, and once we identified their behavior, their pattern of spread, their impact, their infection rates, all of that, so definitely we can find a solution. It can be either vaccine, it can be either medications. So whatever medications and the vaccines you are observing in the current scenario, it is all because we have more or less done genome sequencing of these type of viruses or the bacteria. So that is the simple thing, and hope you understood it. So when we talk about genome sequencing, let's understand about a structure of cell first. You know that any living beings, whether it's bacteria, whether it's virus, okay, they do have the genetic material. But when we talk about the bacteria or the human beings, they do have the proper cell. So in the cell, and we have read as well that the cell is the basic fundamental unit of life, okay, because cell performs many functions, and in the human we have millions of cells. So we can classify cell into unicellular, we can classify into as multicellular. So bacteria comes under unicellular, and we as a humans or the animals or the birds are mainly the multicellular made up of cell. Okay. So now we are entering into the micro zone. So when we try to understand cell, let's say we have this a structure of cell, and you know that who is the controller of cell, who is the driver of cell, the nucleus. And within the nucleus we have the certain genetic materials, and these genetic materials are chromosomes. Okay, so when we try to enlarge the nucleus, so you will identify these structures. These structures are known as chromosomes. You can observe this, and this number of chromosomes depends on person to person. Person to person, that means it depends on whether you are human, whether you are birds, whether you are like insect. So it will depend. Like for humans we have 23 pairs of chromosome. Similarly for the birds there can be the different pair of chromosomes. For the animals it will be different, for the amphibians this will be different, and that's why you are seeing so much biodiversity in the earth. That is the simple mechanism, because within the chromosome, when we try to identify, when we try to explore chromosome, so you can observe that these type of patterns you can find out. So this is known as DNA, that is the deoxyribonucleic acid. So when we talk about DNA, DNA have the information of the genetic material. Like when we say like a robot, we programmed it, we have inserted some codes, and based on that programming, based on that codes, the robot operates, the robot performs their work. Similarly, G DNA, these DNA, it's like program, okay, that we have got from the parent, from the ancestors, and that's why we have this behavior, we have the height, we have the length, we have the organs based on that genetic information, or we can say that based on the blueprint of the DNA. Okay, so hope you understood, and that's why we as a human have the two hands, have like two eyes, two ears, okay, two and one nose. So that is the thing, that is all because we have the DNA and the information in that manner encoded. So this is the basic thing, hope you understood. But you know that when we talk about DNA, okay, so they occurs in base pair. We will understand much more about it, but let's talk about first of all genome. So genome is the complete set of DNA instructions present in the cell, and the human genome is made up of tiny chromosomes. Here we have told you that these are chromosomes. This is one chromosome, and this is like the combination of chromosomes, and the combination of chromosomes we call it as a genome. Okay, and a genome contains all of the information required for a person to develop and function. Okay, and that's why our body, our behavior, our physical appearances, our eyes, our nose, all are made up of based on the instructions which are present in the DNA. Okay, so hope you understood. So we have a cell, and we have a nucleus, and within the nucleus we have the chromosomes, and within the chromosomes we have the DNA, and when we enlarge DNA we have certain a specific portion of DNA that is known as gene. Okay, and when we explore the DNA we will observe certain pattern. The pattern will be like this. Okay, and this pattern is known as double helix structure. So it will be in the form of AGTC. It's for human, that is the adenine, guanine, thymine and cytosine. And UPSC loves to ask the question on these type of biological terms. Okay, so that's why I am trying to decode from basics. So DNA is chemical substance that holds the instruction required for regulating the growth and development of almost all living things, and it has double helix structure. This is the double helix structure. Okay, and each DNA strand is made up of four chemicals, we already told you, and they occur in base pair that we call as nucleotide base, and that comprise the genetic alphabet. And this is the base like A, T, G, and cytosine. So based on their arrangement, there is the behavior, there is the pattern of the living beings. And we already talked to you about the gene, that it is a unit of DNA that contains instruction for making a specific protein or set of protein. So when we talk about genome sequencing, so we try to sequence each information so that we can identify that, let's say, a living being is there, a bacteria is there, so how it will grow, how it will develop, and maybe how it can survive. We can try to observe, try to get idea of that, because it's like going into the genetic program of that living being. So that is the significance of genome sequencing. Okay, and the sequence of base pair is identical in all human beings, but there are difference in the genome of every human being, and that's why every human being is different, because the DNA comes from whom? The parents. And you know that your parents and my parents are different based on the genetic information. So that's why there is a diversity. So diversity is actually because of the difference in some of the information of DNA, not all but some. Okay, and the process of deciphering the order of base pair to decode the genetic fingerprint of a human called genome sequencing. Hope you understood. And there are process of genome sequencing, like I am taking you the process as well. Let's say we have taken the sample of bacteria. Okay, so first of all we will try to take out the DNA sample from the bacteria, and you know that bacteria is single celled. Okay, so we will try to take out the DNA of the bacteria, and after that, this is the DNA. After that we will do DNA shaving, and in the DNA shaving what occurs, like cutting the DNA into fragments, and it is done via molecular seizures, like we have studied about CRISPR-R technique. Okay, these all are molecular seizures. So it is not like the physical seizure that we have in the house. It is not like that. Okay, because these all are at the micro level. Okay, and our seizure are at macro level. So there is a difference between micro and macro. Okay, so after that, the scientists make DNA copies of each DNA fragment using a process called polymerase chain reaction, which we call as PCR reaction. Okay, and the pool fragments generated in a PCR machine, it is called as DNA library. Now, the DNA library is loaded onto a sequence that we call as sequencer, and here the combination of nucleotide which is in the DNA like A, T, C, G, which we already talked, making up each individual fragment of DNA is determined, and each result is called as DNA reads. Here you can see these are like DNA reads, and after that these are arranged and sequenced and reconstructed as the reconstructed genome, so that a pattern, a sequence can be observed. For example, let's say when we talk about the growth of a human, so we can say that first of all childhood will be there, then adulthood, then old age, then death. So this is the sequence. So in the genome sequencing we try to identify the sequence. Let's say a bacteria is there, so how that bacteria is going to evolve, going to develop, going to have a change as per the need. So we try to decode it. And definitely, if we are able to decode it, so we can identify what disease it can cause, how much infection it can cause. And apart from that, when we talk about human genome project, like sequencing the human genome, so we can identify via this that on which person there is a chances of high risk cancer and other genetic problems. Okay, so that is the importance of the genome sequencing. So when we talk about significance, so we have various significance, like it can tell you about the origin of epidemic, and apart from that, controlling the spread. And that's why this type of methodology are utilized in finding out the vaccine, in finding out the medication. And when we talk about specifically to the application in the health sector, like it can be used for the personalized medicine, determining gene disease link. Apart from that, agricultural uses are there. And also we can have a better understanding of disease like cancer, and it can improve the drug efficacy. And apart from that, it can be used as the evolutionary study, how an organism evolved, how a bacteria evolved. Okay, because these all are unanswered questions. So for understanding that, we can have the role of this methodology as well. So hope you understood. Now you have a task for your home. Just tell me, what are the global efforts being taken for the genome sequencing, and then tell me the India led efforts for the genome sequencing. Okay, and please do comment in the chat box so that you can recall it, because you know about all of this, but try to recall it. It will help you in remembering the facts, and these are also very important for your prelim section as well. So now the question for the mains is, like, tell me about the implications of the genome sequencing in the health sector. And here, when we talk about implications, so also tell me the challenges associated in the genome sequencing. Okay, so that is the thing. Now we are shifting to the second article, which is related to the Prevention of Money Laundering Act, and it can be covered under GS paper 2. So when we talk about Prevention of Money Laundering Act, when did it come? It came in 2002. So if you clearly observe that PMLA came after the parliamentary attack 2001. Okay, so that means the terrorist attack which occurred on the parliament was more or less done under the influence of terrorist financing as well. Okay, so that is the thing, and hence there was a strict action was taken in India by making a law to curb the money laundering, and also to deal with drug trafficking and terrorism. So hope you understood the basic. And in this act, there was a creation of a body that is known as Enforcement Directorate, and you hear in the news frequently about this body. So what was the main function of this Enforcement Directorate? That this should prevent money laundering, so that the money should not be transferred towards drug trafficking and terrorism. But nowadays, we are seeing that it is being used as a political dimension. Like in this article, there is a suggestion, there is a statement, like the ED, Enforcement Directorate, files the case in those states with those MLA or MP who do not belongs to the party at the center, but who belongs to the opposition party. That is the pattern, and we will discuss in that as well. But when we talk about another scenario, these type of matters we went to the Supreme Court regarding the jurisdiction of Enforcement Directorate. So Supreme Court in their judgment, in many judgment, clarified that the Enforcement Directorate have the jurisdiction to file a case and to investigate a case or the crime or offense which is under the scheduled offense under the section 2 clause 1 subclause u of the 2002 act. Okay, that means if that offense, if any offense do comes under the scheduled offense, then ed is empowered to take action. But if any offense do not comes under the schedule offense, the list of the offense that is mentioned under that schedule, so the ed does not have the power. But what we are seeing, that the many incident where the ed do not have the jurisdiction, but they are like interfering in that as well. We will see some of the example. Okay, so in the Pankaj Bansal versus Union of India case, the Supreme Court criticized ed for improper arrest procedure and lack of consistency as well. So now we will understand some of the examples, like how ed has a selective targeting and political bias. For example, there was an incident in Jharkhand when an when a MLA of the Jharkhand government was investigated based on alleged illegal sand mining, which is a minor mineral, okay, by the ED. But here we need to understand that when we try to look on the schedules of the offense of the Prevention of Money Laundering Act, so the case related to illegal sand mining is not mentioned as a offense in that schedule. Okay, the so that means the ED do not have the power to deal with these offense. But apart from that, the ED investigated that matter, and even that matter went to the High Court, and here High Court even do not took active responsibility, and the High Court transferred the case even to CBI despite lack of jurisdiction of the ED. Okay, so that is the one thing. And apart from that, what we have seen, that even in the BJP ruled state, despite there is a higher incident of illegal mining, there is no action taken by the ED. Like in Maharashtra, Haryana, Uttar Pradesh, Gujarat, Madhya Pradesh, the case of illegal mining are 6,743. Then we have 324. Then we have 23,787. Okay, so we have this type of case, but no one case you will be hearing about this. So what this represent the bias, although you cannot like name it into the main answer writing about the government, okay, but you can quote the data as well. So here the offense related to illegal sand mining should be dealt with the Mines and Minerals Act 1957, because it has the provisions how we can curb the evasion, and also there is a provision of penalty and prosecution. But this power of penalty and prosecution has been given to the state government, but here we are seeing that the central authority is taking such action. So there is conflict between the center and the state authority. Okay, so that is the thing. So we can say that there is a challenge, there is a threat to the federalism, and central agency is bypassing a state authority in matters outside the PMLA scope, and this also undermines the basic structure of the constitution and federal principle. Now you have to tell me some of the suggestion that how we can ensure that these type of incidents, this type of breach should not happen, and the suggestion so that we can reform, we can ensure more autonomy to enforcement directorate. So you can provide me the suggestion in the chat box. Now friends, this is the end of the article. We are now shifting to the last question for the prelims PYQ, and please pause the video and definitely tell me the answer in the chat box. Okay, so friends, this is the end of the session. Thank you very much. If you liked our session, please do enjoy, share, like. Thank you.